time for Q&A.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of questions, so we won't get to all of them. But one quick question, when do we expect a CBO score on our bill?
First of all, let me talk about a CBO score. So a CBO score it could be as short as one sentence, or it could be a total report. And what a CBO score does is it would tell us what the effect of this bill is over 10 years on the federal budget. And so this really gets to the revenue neutrality aspect of this. And so with this bicameral introduction, it might be some time for us to get those one or two sentences on the revenue neutrality according to the CBO, but I'm not sure on the actual timing. It might be some time, or it might be relatively quick, but right now I'm not expecting one before our June conference.
Okay, and so in this version of the bill, is there any mandate for the EPA to meet those targets like in the House bill? And are there any concerns about shenanigans from the EPA given this language?
No. So in those 3 pages, you did have, so first of all, we're not rolling back. There's no regulatory pause here, but there's regulatory direction to review. Whereas the other bill paused first and reviewed later, and there was always a thought that those regulations could come back. Presumably in this one, once they're reviewed and if we are on target and they go away, there's not a mechanism to bring them back. And so if you are going to break with the EPA's own determination that carbon prices are better than the Clean Power Plan, and if you are going to concern yourself a lot with there being regulations, I could see yourself preferring this bill, or I could see you preferring the House bill. I think that it'll be interesting to see how that ends up shaking out.
Okay, great. And if someone's got a Republican that they think might be interested in sponsoring, what do they do? Do they talk directly to you, or what's the process?
For the next Congress, I will assume, then I think, yeah, talk to me. I mean, we've already hit the likely ones several times, so is the Coons office. And so I think that in this Congress, given that Congress might be done tomorrow, please do let me know, and let me know with the view towards approaching them in the next Congress. But in the meantime, Madeline is going to tell you how you can reach out to your senators, how you can make your voice heard with letters of support, with calls. So we'll get more detail on that from Madeline.
Okay, great. And people are asking about the relationship of this and the Green New Deal, whether they can coexist or whether there's any conflict there. Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, they're really not comparable. This is a concrete policy that could be enacted in the next Congress, whereas the Green New Deal is a plan to have a plan at the end of the next Congress. And so there's nothing mutually exclusive about them at all. This, I think, would make the ultimate goals laid out in the Green New Deal much more achievable. But this is a solid policy that is available for consideration now. And the Green New Deal is more higher level, looking towards the future, and that has not yet proven that it can get bipartisan support in both chambers of Congress.
Okay, and there's a question about whether this bill has any exemptions for any specific industries, or is it just the agricultural exemption?
It's the same. It's the agricultural exemption.
Okay, and then people are asking about a bill number, but we know that'll take a day or two. So there was, in the talking points you gave, there you didn't mention revenue neutrality, but are we still, using that as a talking point just as much?
We are. I changed it so that it would match with the slide that had been prepared. So I just stuck with the 4 that were on the slide, figuring that Leslie thought those were the most important.
Okay. And one last question: are we going to have something to replace REMI, some sort of analysis of this?
We are certainly discussing that. I am hopeful that we won't have to pay for that. As I mentioned, we are expecting other studies because this is something that the economics profession really hasn't thought was possible. So I am expecting other studies. I know that there is serious consideration being given to those. We are also open to possibly another study that is supported by CCL, but the honest truth is if we don't pay for it, it's more credible. And so, we're looking forward to working with researchers, whether we're paying them or not, and we're going to be excited that this is likely to generate a lot of research around the topic.
Okay, great. That's all. Yep, more questions. So we're getting a lot of questions about how to ask senators to, are we asking them to support? Are we asking them to sponsor? Are we keeping them in balance? Can we go over that again?
Yeah, I think that what we're looking at right now is we're asking them to educate themselves on the text of the bill and consider supporting in the following Congress. So this is just serving notice. Hey, this is in your chamber as well, and we want you to have read this and be able to talk about it. And we want you to consider supporting this. And so I think that that's where we want to direct that conversation. Madeline, would you add anything to that?
No, I think you got it, Danny.
Great.
Okay, great. And then people are asking, people are saying, oh, how are we ever going to get this past Mitch McConnell? Can you speak to that question at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversations that we've had with Mitch McConnell, he's been very clear that this is going to have to be good for Kentucky to get past his office. He hasn't been completely shutting us down, and so I think that the way we get this by Mitch McConnell is we are going to, as we're going to have to do with everybody, this is in a lot of ways a beginning for the conversation. This brings the conversation to a whole new level, which is part of why we were so excited to see both of these introduced in the lame duck, because this gives you, the CCL volunteers, a tool that you've never had. There's an urgency to a bipartisan bill that has been submitted. There's even more urgency to bipartisan bill in both the House and the Senate. And again, we've never seen that for a carbon pricing bill. No organization has ever been able to pull this off before. And so I think that really adds a lot of urgency to this discussion, and that's going to enable us to, I think, really, really push forward. And part of that discussion is going to be Mitch McConnell, people around Mitch McConnell, and we'll see.
Okay, great.
I would just add, please recruit your friends in Kentucky because they can help us.
Great. So there's questions about how to respond when people link the protests in France and carbon taxes. Can you say anything about how we should respond and how ours is different than what was going on in France?
Yeah, well, this one has a dividend. It is expressly designed to avoid the reason why they were protesting in the first place. This takes care of the poor and middle class. Who was rioting in France? It was the poor and the middle class. Fuel taxes are borne disproportionately by the poor. Carbon taxes are borne disproportionately by the poor. Dividend takes care of them. And so I think that both of these bills avoid the problem that the French protesters and rioters were responding to from the get-go. So this legislation, which you have been supporting for years, anticipates that problem and is designed entirely to avoid doing this on the backs of the poor.
Mm-hmm. Great. People are asking whether there's going to be a press conference in DC. Do we have plans for that?
No, there is not. There are no plans for that. No, there are no.
Right. Okay.
No.
Okay, great. And then how are we getting endorsements from national organizations? People are asking about Sierra and 350 and others. Can you say a little more about that process?
Let's make a distinction between endorsements and supportive statements. Mm-hmm. There were a bunch of supportive statements that are already on the bill website from several national organizations. And because Section 8 of this bill is so different than House Resolution 7173, we're going to have to go back to them and make sure that they get a new statement. And so I don't really think we're asking any organizations to endorse at this time, at least in the DC office. We're really concerned about supportive statements. And I think that once the bills are reintroduced, then I think we can perhaps engage a bit more fully on this. But again, I think for a lot of them, they thought this was impossible, and so they didn't engage with us in the way we were asking them to. And so I think that it's going to need to be a process of engagement before we get to endorsement. So right now we are thrilled with supportive statements. We want supportive statements. And I think that for those larger national organizations, you should definitely be going through Stephanie Doyle in the DC office, because she's probably already in touch with the national organization that you are concerned with. For local organizations, absolutely you should go and get their endorsements. For local chapters of national organizations, you should go and try and get their endorsements. And there's an endorsement page up. We didn't really anticipate winning this much this quickly. And so we still need to figure out how we slice the endorsement for a Senate bill and a House bill that are not exactly the same. It's a great problem to have, and we're going to spend some time thinking about that, and we'll hope to get a